Auburn hiring DeMarcus Van Dyke. It makes sense the more I look into it, but I still have some questions.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We're bringing in Alex Donno, the host of Locked On Canes, to talk about Auburn's new cornerbacks coach, DeMarcus Van Dyke. Donno, this is a guy that seems to be Miami through and through. Played there, started his career there after coaching at a high school for a year, but quality control analyst, and then kind of worked his way up from there. I mean, this guy seems as Miami as it gets, Donno.
Yeah, to the point where, Zach, I covered him when he played at Miami. It was around like 07, 08 when he got to the U. He grew up down in South Florida, played at Monsignor Pace High School. And I remember, and it's funny because even covering him when he played, I always felt like this guy is going to be a coach someday because he was always like really cerebral, like when he would do interviews. Just a really down-to-earth, mature guy, even when he was like 19, 20 years old. So he played cornerback at Miami, and he speed was always his thing, but he was always a guy with good technique as well. So I always did get the sense even back then that like DVD could end up being a coach at some point.
Yeah, and obviously he has. So when you look at DVD's resume, I mean, it looked like for years there he kind of worked his way up at Miami to the point where, okay, he's cornerbacks coach, but it kind of looked like he fell off after that going to FIU. And then there was a stint there where it looked like he was on the field as well as like being over Miami's recruiting. Give us info and details on kind of his career arc at Miami as a coach, if you would.
Yeah, so here's how it went down. Like with you could call it a demotion or whatever at one point in time, but it was really about circumstances and timing. So DeMarcus had, like you mentioned, kind of worked his way up from quality control, and then in 2021, which was the final year of Manny Diaz as head coach at Miami, had worked himself up to an on-field position as defensive backs coach. But as a lot of things go when you make a coaching change, when Manny Diaz got fired, Miami hires Mario Cristobal, and he, decides like who on the staff to keep. And he mostly brought in his own people, obviously. So the reason why Van Dyke, it was just a timing thing. Like he got demoted, but he stayed on the staff. So he went from defensive backs coach to analyst, and he very handy in recruiting. Like Cristobal valued what DVD added to the staff. It wasn't just, hey, let's keep this guy because he's a former player. Like he really did value what he brought, but Cristobal wanted to find a more experienced defensive backs coach. He ended up taking Jamil Adai from the SEC, who had more experience there. So that was the reason why that demotion took place. And I think even at that time, and keep in mind this was like 4 years ago, kind of the thought was with Van Dyke that he was still like a really, really young coach. And I think the situation that Van Dyke has with Miami, and I don't mean this to say like he would leave Auburn anytime soon, but he's kind of got like there's a key under the mat for you type of situation with Miami. And I think the thought with Cristobal always was like, hey, like we don't at that time 4 years ago didn't feel like he was an on-field coach, but if that opportunity ever, comes back when he has more experience someday to come back to Miami, that opportunity is always open. So after serving, I guess it was 1 year, he stayed on the staff as an analyst. He found an opportunity to be an on-field assistant at FIU, which is just down the road from Miami, and then was able to get to USF, which is a bigger job than FIU, and then obviously Auburn is a much bigger job than USF. So I think the experience level that DVD has now is, to me, he's got a much better resume than he did, at the time when Cristobal didn't feel comfortable having him on the staff as a full-time assistant coach.
So him going from off the field at Miami to on the field at FIU, is that just I can be a hands-on like cornerbacks coach? You feel was that what the feeling was when he left?
Yeah, because my understanding was that he really missed that. Like, obviously there's, and actually now analysts can do more than they could back then. Like analysts are
Sure.
actually
Yeah.
allowed to do on field, but at that time they were not, right? So I think he really missed that because Van Dyke, and this is something Auburn fans should be excited about. I think he really is a good teacher and he's a great relationship builder. So yeah, at the time he left Miami for FIU, I think he could have stayed at Miami at an off-field role at that time, but he really wanted to be a DB's coach or a cornerbacks coach in name, and that's why he left.
Yeah. Then of course South Florida, coached under Alex Golesh. Alex Golesh goes to Auburn. He's bringing a lot of his guys with him, Donno. And I think some Auburn fans are asking the question, rightfully so. I am to some extent too. We're like, okay, this is a lot of South Florida coming to Auburn. It's not exactly, SEC to SEC or even like Big 10, Big 12 to SEC. It's, non-power 5 to the SEC. But when you look at each individual case, like Alex Van Dyke, like I do think his resume is good enough for him to be, an SEC cornerbacks coach.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's one of those things where, like, I think some Miami fans see, we always track DeMarcus, like everywhere he lands. It's like, man, I kind of wish he was back here in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I feel like we've all got guys like that. They've played.
Yeah, right. So
Right.
he's one of those guys. And every player that I know of who's worked with him on the field has always really, really taken a liking to him, and he's a monster on the recruiting trail, by the way. There was a situation, a player that everyone remembers that was committed to Miami for a while, and then there was the whole flip to Colorado, but he was instrumental in getting former 5-star cornerback Cormani McClain committed to Miami. Yeah. And then actually, I think one of the reasons why Cormani flipped elsewhere was he really wanted DVD to be his on-field coach, and that didn't happen. So I think that was actually one of the reasons. I'm sure there were a number of different reasons with Deion Sanders and everybody involved there, but that was actually one of the reasons why he didn't stick with Miami. So he's a great relationship builder as well as being a good coach.
So everything around DVD is recruiting. I want to go a little bit deeper as far as, can guys get better under DVD? That's next right here on Locked on Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. And look, NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're watching the game and then you're able to react to it in real time. Live betting is best when that game starts to shift, a receiver's getting hot, or a defense tightens up, or maybe somebody has to leave the game and then all of a sudden the attention goes to other players. You can react to it in real time with FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com. Place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Aura Frames. Look, it's Christmas time. We're all trying to check off everybody on our list. This is an easy way to get a few of those loved ones, family members, knocked off your Christmas hunting list this season. Because look, if you want to get something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every single time. Aura is not your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it when they can plug it in. Or if they're more tech savvy, you can give it to them and then you can get their app and their information. You can kind of upload pictures on there regardless of where they live, which is very, very cool. So for a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames. By using promo code COLLEGE, that is Aura Frames, AURA frames.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms and conditions apply. Alex Donno, host of Locked On Canes, very thankful for you for giving us a few minutes. So everything about him is, when we talk about DeMarcus Van Dyke, everything is about recruiting. And also, I think a lot of this is about the state of Florida. This is his first job out of the state of Florida, going to Auburn. Obviously, Florida is a place that Auburn recruits a ton. Everybody recruits Florida a ton. From your perspective, should there be any concern with that element of this?
Well, I would assume Florida is an area that Auburn is going to want to recruit.
Yes.
And I mean, that could be his area of specialty because having been a South Florida high school football player and coach in South Florida, he's got those relationships. He built relationships in Tampa and the Central Florida area while he was with USF. But at the same time, he's just so good at recruiting. Like when it comes to just his personality, you know, he really wins over the parents in the living room. He builds great relationships with players.
Right.
You know, I would assume he's gonna, you know, have to build those relationships, obviously, with high schools in Alabama and Louisiana and Mississippi, all the key SEC territories, and Georgia. He probably already has some relationships at Georgia because those get heavily recruited down in the Florida area. So I would assume he's going to build those very quickly. But in the meantime, he can be your ace in the hole. You send him down to any South Florida high school, and Coach DVD is going to be able to make some noise.
Yeah, that's great. That's good news for sure. When you look at every stop that he's been, like, he hasn't been an on-field coach at a place for very long. Yeah. So this might be a tough question to really like dig into. But in your experience, do corners get better? Did they get better under him at Miami?
Yeah, I'll give you the main example of one who was someone that I thought started playing kind of above his original talent level and improved under DeMarcus Van Dyke was DJ Ivey, a corner at Miami. And this was in an era he was recruited by Manny Diaz. Like Miami didn't recruit at the level back then, like 2019, 2020, that they do now under Mario Cristobal. And, you know, DJ Ivey was someone who caused Miami fans a lot of frustration. But by the time DVD was done with him, he ended up getting drafted and becoming an NFL player. So I think that was a notable example of a homegrown guy. And, you know, he also worked with Tyreek Stevenson, who was not, you know, he was closer to a finished product because Stevenson transferred from Georgia. So he was more polished, but he did end up even raising his draft stock at Miami, and DeMarcus had a big thing to do with that. And, you know, Miami played USF head-to-head the last couple of seasons, and I always thought their defensive backfield was one of the stronger points of USF's roster. So, you know, and again, this is like you mentioned, he doesn't have, you know, a 5-page resume. The resume is pretty short, but I think DVD has made a decent impact in the limited on-field coaching experience he's had.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Quick pivot. Sounds like Keontae Scott's had a pretty good season for you guys.
Oh my God. Yeah. We're praying that he's going to be available for the college football playoff because Keontae, you know, he suffered an injury during Miami's 10th game of the season. Through those 10 games, Keontae was the highest graded defensive back in the country by Pro Football Focus. Like he really, I know, because believe me, I followed his career and I asked you about him when he transferred to Miami. So he had a tremendous year, and there's just it seems like it's going to be a game time decision type of thing for the CFP game against Texas A&M. Like we're hoping he can get healthy in time for that one because he was great this year.
Yeah, good for him and good for you guys. Donno, for Auburn folks wanting more Miami coverage, where should they go?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Zach. Locked On Canes, wherever you get your podcasts, Locked On Canes on YouTube, and who knows, I might talk some DeMarcus this week with him getting this big gig because, again, like, Zach, Miami fans love DeMarcus Van Dyke. Like, we're always tracking, where is he and when's he eventually coming back to Miami? So there's a lot of love for DVD.
That's awesome. Hey, please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.